Welcome back to Amazing Chest. I'm on a quest to beat Elden Ring, playing as every single boss, and if that sounds like fun to you, then go ahead and subscribe because YouTube doesn't always recommend. The rules of this challenge are simple. I need to beat the game, but I can only play as bosses from the Mountaintops. If I die, then the boss I'm playing as will upgrade, and that cycle will continue until we've defeated Promised Consort Radahn. The first boss on our list was Margit. We're starting off as the ancient hero because he's on the weaker side, but he does have a few tricks up his sleeve. If you guys haven't seen the last episode, we just did something similar with every boss from the main game, so check that video out if you haven't already. But now that we've defeated Margit, the plan was simple. We need to beat the Elden Beast, enter the DLC, and defeat Promised Consort Radahn. There's also a mystery challenge that we'll be completing at the end, but only if we manage to complete the first 3 goals. This is a unique challenge because we can only control bosses from the Mountaintops and the Western Snowfield. That means we'll only have access to 15 bosses, but by the end of this video, we're going to be trying to do the impossible while playing as the Fire Giant. Enjoy. This matchup should be easy since we outscale Limgrave by a lot, but Godric does have fire in phase 2 and we are weak to it. We opened with an Ice Breath, but it did way less damage than it did against Margit. Our slashes almost sent him into phase 2 immediately, and then he went for a Stormcaller, so he backed away but still got caught. We used Zammer Ice Storm while he was mid-animation to get some hits in, and that's when we noticed something weird. Some of our attacks just didn't have hitboxes, but Zammer Knights use these moves against me all the time, so it didn't make sense at all. Regardless, we eventually hit half health and entered phase 2 ourselves before diving into his Earthquake for the finish. After some testing on the Mariner outside, I realized that the bugged attacks only work in phase 2, so it was just a skill issue. The Mountaintops has a very good chance of completing this run because their stats are higher than any boss we've ever used before. We've got fast bosses like the Ancient Hero, tanks like the Great Worm, and even gank fights like the Avatar Duo. But most importantly, we've got Frostbite, Scarlet Rot, and the Fire Giant who has 60,000 HP. This should give us a fighting chance, but the DLC was designed around Shadow Tree Blessings, which we obviously can't use as bosses, so we'll have to be careful. For now though, we're on our way to Radahn. The goal right now is to get our second Great Rune so we can enter the capital, and the Ancient Hero should have what it takes to pull it off. He's got Frostbite, which will do a chunk of damage and reduce his defenses by 20%, but our biggest weakness is our low poise, and Radahn's Cragblade will flatten us if we're not careful. There's a few things we have to do first before we can take on Radahn, so while I complete those tasks, let me tell you about this video's partner. Arena Club is one of the best marketplaces for trading cards, and they just sent me 2 packs to rip digitally so I can show you how they work. From sports figures to Pokemon cards, they allow collectors and hobbyists to share their passion across the globe digitally. That means no more worrying about physical shipping or damaged cards. Everything is done online by directly messaging sellers or buyers and using built-in tools to negotiate each trade. The platform even has its own grading process, which shows you exactly how your card obtained its score, letting you avoid beginner traps like selling your card for less than it's worth. If you rather rip packs than trade, Arena Club has you covered there too, and some of the cards in these packs are worth a lot of money, like the Charizard and the Latias I pulled in this video. Use my promo code AmazingChest to get a discount at checkout, and thanks again to Arena Club for sponsoring this video. Our speed let us dodge Radahn's gravity arrows, but we did get clipped by his arrow rain. After another dodge, we went in with a jump attack. We were doing some solid damage, but the Ancient Hero is so tall that we couldn't duck under his swings. We backed up while he buffed and waited for Starcaller Cry so we could punish him from behind. Instead though, he hit us with a slam and then animation canceled into a bigger one. With our main opening gone, we had to keep trading until he went into phase 2, and once he finally did, the rest was history. The Grave Warden Duelist was up next. He's just a Catacombs boss, but he still packs a punch, and he can even inflict Scarlet Rot, which is Radahn's weakness. The Duelist has this hilarious running animation for his charge attack, and we used it to run circles around him. We both started spinning, but all of ours connected, and all of his missed. We were just one hit away from skipping phase 2 entirely, and his meteor was easy to dodge thanks to our charge. After surviving it, one more hit, and Radahn went down. With Radahn down, we have both Great Runes necessary to enter the capital. Now we just had to get past the Tree Sentinel, who was guarding the gate. This matchup was going to be rough. The Duelist doesn't have any passive poise, so every hit would knock us over, but our Great Axe does good damage, and Scarlet Rot should be able to wear him down. On our way there, we dodged the first Great Arrow and used our charge to avoid the rest. When the fight finally started, our worst fear came true. Every hit flattened us, and the Duelist has no reliable way of disengaging, so we just kept getting stunned over and over again. We managed to escape one combo thanks to our hyper armor, and a big hit pushed him into phase 2. We got pancaked again though, no, and his lightning finished the job. That's when we tagged in the Putrid Avatar. This guy has all the strengths of the duelist, but with infinite poise and higher damage. A ground pound into a swing broke his poise immediately, and the follow-up left him at half HP. While it's true that we are weak to fire, that doesn't really matter if he doesn't get to play, and as soon as he entered phase 2, we hit him with another ground pound and he dropped the keys to the capital. The Sentinel might be standing outside, but everyone knows Godfrey is the real gatekeeper in these runs. He's a mobile tank with amazing stance damage who's even killed Remembrance bosses in the past. While this fight could go either way, this boss has everything it needs to destroy Godfrey, and I'll explain exactly why that is in the boss arena. On the way there, we ran into our weaker twin and avenged ourselves from the incident that happened in the previous run. We dodged some great arrows on our way up the dragon, and I used that term loosely, then bullied the gargoyle at the top because he looked at me funny. When the fight against Godfrey started, we opened with a lunge into the ground pound and broke his stance immediately. The attack spread rot puddles everywhere, and this is exactly why I chose this boss. The tiny arena meant Godfrey would have nowhere to run, and his health bar got absolutely melted. It's too bad the Morgott fight didn't go the same way. His arena is a lot bigger, so the rot puddles wouldn't carry us like they did against Godfrey, but a few swings staggered him and our stomps were doing over 1200 damage each. At this point, we didn't even have to respect his phase 2 transition, and we just kept hitting him the entire time. We did walk away from the sword rain though to avoid any multi-hit shenanigans, and despite Blood Flame doing fire damage, he barely got us below half before his time was up. Now that we made it back home, the real test could finally begin. So far, we've cleared half the main game with only 3 bosses, and we still had 12 left to go. Our goal now is to beat the fire giant so we could access the forge and burn down the Erd Tree, which seems like a weird thing for an Erd Tree avatar to do, and now is a good time to address the elephant in the room. The fire giant does fire damage, and we're a giant tree. Our ground pound would probably break his leg and the rot should wear him down, but we'd be lucky enough to survive even 1 fire pillar. Before we could test that theory though, we had bigger problems. On our way to the fire giant, the Kindred ambushed us, and this guy loves killing slow bosses, so we turned around and killed him instead. The problems didn't stop there though, and on our way through the freezing lake, we almost died to Borealis, surviving only thanks to plot armor. The avatar is slow, and it made a huge difference in this fight. We couldn't dodge his first few attacks and lost about 4,000 health as a result. We eventually broke his poise and managed to proc Scarlet Rot, but then he entered his pyromancy phase. We barely dodged the fireball, and while we waited for his orb, he slammed us for another 1200 damage. A snow wave staggered us, and we couldn't avoid the follow-up. By this point, the rot had faded, and so did any chance of us winning. The avatar was too slow, so I decided to pick a boss with 1 leg. Ironically, his moveset has some solid mobility, and the fire giant is actually weak to his lightning attacks. Using the gliding charge, we dodged under his swipe and went for his foot. We got some good damage on his hand during the firestorm, but his fire breath caught us on the way out. Just like that, the fight went from easy to desperate. We ran under him during the meteors and started spamming whirlwinds. He staggered and we went for a lightning jump, but it just wasn't enough. We barely dodged a roll that would have killed us, and with just a sliver of health remaining, 1 more lightning jump sealed the deal. After that close fight, we climbed up the forge and burned the Erd Tree to enter Farum Azula. Malekith was the next target, but the Godskin duo was in the way. This fight was going to be a gamble. The Godskins are aggressive and their black flame hurts like hell, but Nile is the king of AoE, so if we could hit both at once, then we should have this in the bag. Our lightning jump let us do some stylish parkour across Farum, and we made it to the Dragon Temple. We started the fight by summoning our banished knights as a distraction, but the way we set this up does cause friendly fire though, so we had to be careful where we aim. We were not careful. The Great Shield Knight backed off and got jumped by the duo for a bit, but when he stepped back in, we focused on the Apostle. A whirlwind staggered him out of his transition, and we backed off before the Noble could join in. We finished the Apostle with a charge, but then the Noble started rolling. 1 hit away from death, we landed a lightning jump just before the damage could finish us off. When the Apostle spawned in, we didn't take any chances, and Nile clutched himself yet another win. Nile now had 2 stealth diffuses under his belt, but could he do it a 3rd time? Malekith destroyed us in the last run, and we ended up losing multiple bosses to him. This time our team was stronger, but destined death is still destined death. Against his first phase, we summoned the Banished Knights as meat shields again, and they actually put in work this time. Before long, a lightning kick sent him into phase 2. That's where things fell apart. Malekith tore through the Shield Knight immediately, then hit us with a double spin. While we were down, he landed a full combo, and the destined death finished us off off before we could ever recover. It was time to fight fire with fire. This boss has 2 different movesets and it can fly, so we had a lot of options. We also have Destined Death ourselves, so we should be able to do some big damage. Our axe staggered the clergyman and a Destined Death roar melted his health. We tried to bait out his explosion like we always do, but we were too slow to turn and he caught us with a full combo. At this point we switched over to twin blades and then he hit us again. Down to a third of our health we backed off and charged up our ultimate. The Destined Death whirlwind tore through him like a wet paper towel, and a few twin blade slashes later and Malekith was dead. Gideon. For the first time in a long time, we didn't lose half of our roster to Malekith. This meant that we still had 11 bosses remaining, and we were gonna need them for what was coming up next. We opened with a Destined Death, but Godfrey closed the gap and the attack missed entirely. Our follow-up staggered him, but we missed again by being too close. As I've said before, Godfrey's first phase is immune to Destined Death for some reason, and one of you guys in the comments mentioned that it might be because of Siraj. Let me know what the rest of you think by leaving a comment below. We dodged an earthquake with our whirlwind and hit him again, but Destined Death was hardly doing anything. One hit away from death ourselves, we dodged yet another earthquake and somehow got him into phase 2. Things were not looking good, but as soon as Horalu came out, Destined Death did its thing. Now only one boss stood between us and completing the first goal of this challenge. Flying off to use Destined Death had carried us this far, but that probably wouldn't work against Radagon's parry and projectiles. On top of that, the Kindred is a glass cannon, and our luck was quickly running out. As expected, Radagon parried our Destined Death and took basically no damage at all. We switched over to our twin blades, but the slash damage bounced off of his stone skin. We kept swinging though, and eventually got him into phase 2, but we couldn't hit him when he got close, and he kept getting under us. An axe slam staggered him, but we just kept on missing, and after a lot of back and forth, the golden stakes put us down. Time to bring out the big guns. Astal Stars of Darkness is basically an upgraded version of the Remembrance Astal hiding in a random cave in the snowfield. With 18,000 health, we could tank a lot of hits while tearing enemies apart with gravity magic. Our gravity waves did big poise damage and the pulses kept hitting Radagon while he was staggered. We backed off and unleashed a meteor storm, and even though only one of them hit him, it still did 1200 damage. His triple slams finally broke our stance, but we recovered before anything serious happened. He went for the triple slams again, which we'd never seen before, but since he was locked in place, we just threw more meteors. One more hit and phase 1 was over. We opened the Elden Beast fight with a laser and tanked its wave of gold. I expected the multi-hit to hurt a lot more than it did, but no complaints here. A few bites with our mandibles staggered the beast, and our nebula attacks did solid damage. Eventually I lost track of it and got hit by a golden breath. We went for another meteor storm and staggered it again. When it went for the triple rings, we showed the Elden Beast who the superior alien was. With our first goal completed, I defeated Nile so I could access the DLC. To get there, we had to cross the consecrated snowfield and defeat Mohg. This would be a much more even fight than the last few. We don't overpower bosses by stats alone anymore, and Mohg himself is dangerous. His trident does high poise damage, and Astal is weak to bleed. On the way through the snowfield, we found out that Astal's gap close attack doesn't lose height until the move ends, and this will definitely come in handy later. You'll see what I mean in just a few. Things got rough when 2 rune bears jumped us while we were fighting the Sanguine Noble, and since we hadn't rested at the Grace yet, we had to fight them at half HP. Rune bears are tanks, but we did survive, and when we got to Mohgwyn Palace, we used the trick from earlier to fly up the cliffside and skip most of the area. We floated over to the mausoleum and landed at the elevator, and it was already time for Mohg. Our damage wasn't great, but our bites staggered him fast. While he was down, our nebula attacks hit his head for some extra damage, and we got him past his nihil threshold. We backed off to cast meteors, and a lot of them connected. At this point, we were still at full HP, so things were looking really good. That's when his bleed procced, and then we got stance broken. He swung at our head and triggered another bleed, and then we tried to back off. This fight was really close, but one more stagger and some tail thrust put Mohg down for good. We were now in the Land of Shadows, and our third goal was to beat Promised Consort Radahn. Remember that mystery challenge I mentioned at the start of this video? Well, we were gonna go for every DLC Remembrance boss. I genuinely think our roster is strong enough to pull it off, and I did save a few trump cards for some specific DLC fights. We made our way to Bellerot and used the trick from earlier to skip most of the area. We landed right in front of the Dancing Lion's Fog Gate, and the fight started off badly. The lion jumped under us immediately, and when we tried to back off, Astal got staggered. Every hit did about 2,000 damage, and the gravity of the situation started to weigh on us. We went for our meteor storm, and since the lion is huge, nearly all of them connected. That pushed him into phase 2, where we tried to stun him with the gravity magic. Unfortunately though, his attacks and the pillars kept staggering us, us, and while we did manage to get close, Astel eventually went down. We called in the spirit caller snail next, and the Mountaintops version can actually summon the Godskin duo. Since the snail doesn't have any attacks of its own, we went into stealth mode and crossed our fingers. The Godskin noble was passive at first, which had us worried for a second, but after getting a little warmed up, they were both casting fireballs. Unfortunately, the Shadow Tree Blessing makes bosses resist Black Flame, which sucks for us, but the Godskin duo was still putting in work. The noble staggered the lion right as the apostle went into phase 2, and they both ganged up on him for some solid damage. The dancing lion entered the lightning phase, and there was nothing we could do but watch. It wasn't until the lion turned to attack the noble that we realized the apostle had died. The noble didn't give up though. He staggered the dancing lion, then decided to punch him in the face. When he got staggered in return, I thought it was over, and then I realized it was just his phase 2 transition. Just one rolling attack in that phase would have ended the fight, but he didn't even need it. I did not expect to win that fight, but now it was time for an even harder one. While we did have 2 Godskins at our disposal, Rolana had a sword for each of them. Using the snail's invisibility, we snuck through Castle Insys and eventually made it to her. When this fight started, Rolana sent the apostle to phase 2 in seconds. The duo got aggressive and almost sent her into phase 2 as well, but she slipped away and cut down the apostle. When his partner died, the noble pretty much gave up. And then her magic revealed us, and we had nowhere else to hide. I decided to avenge our duo by sending in another one. The Erdtree avatars do strike and holy damage, which Rolana just so happens to be weak to. Now I know what you're thinking. The avatars are made of wood, but our plan was to burst her down quickly before her phase 2 fire sword came out. We let our clone take the aggro while we spam projectiles from afar. Once her poise was low enough, we went in with a jump slam and got the stagger. After a full combo, she was already down to 60%. We tag team Rolana like the Hardy Boys, and by the time she pulled out the fire, she was already tapping out. She did manage to take our clone with her, but since she didn't kill us, this was still considered a win. Next up was Commander Gaius. We need to avoid his charge, but that's easier said than done when you're the size of a house. When he charged at us, I timed a ground pound and somehow managed to survive. From there, he'd stay up close, which meant that he wouldn't charge again. Our clone broke his stance and we took turns wailing on him. This was some amazing teamwork, and by some holy miracle, we managed to get him into phase 2. We tried to escape his transition, but ended up tanking the entire thing. At this point, we were one shot, so we gave it everything we had and we barely came out on top. With 2 wins under our belt, the duo was looking unstoppable. Next up was Matir, and my plan was to exploit her holy weakness. Our projectiles were useless and so was our twin. His AI wouldn't approach Matir until she got close, so that forced us to go in ourselves. Eventually it became clear that we were just outmatched. Her stats were way higher than ours and we couldn't lay a finger on her. Next up was Borealis, and this was definitely an upgrade. Since we couldn't handle Matir up close, I was forced to keep my distance. This dragon has a long-range frost breath that kept us safe while dealing damage. We opened with it and got a frost proc while breaking her stance at the same time. While she was staggered, I went for a charge, and even with frostbite weakening her defenses, our physical damage was terrible. A few more breaths sent her into phase 2, and when she exploded, we turned so it wouldn't hit our head. A couple more breaths, and Matir was history. Next up was the Putrescent Knight at the bottom of the fissure. He's way squishier than Matir, and with only 20,000 health, this should be free. Dragons have this cut content sprint animation that lets them cross the area pretty fast, and we flew over the giant tombstones when the laser golem started firing. These things destroy large bosses and they never stop shooting. We knocked one down with an ice breath, but he still had a line of sight on us. When the second golem joined in, there was nothing we could do, and Borealis died before ever reaching the boss to fight. We only had 6 bosses left, but still 7 remembrances remaining. Get it? 6? Sorry. We respawned as the Crusader, who might seem like a weird pick, but this guy has a holy projectile and PK is weak to holy. The plan for this fight was simple: just run circles around him and chip him down from afar. We made it through the fissure easily and hit him with a weapon art that did 2,000 damage. It would only take 10 hits to finish him off, but the knight somehow outranged us instead, and before we even knew it hit us, it was already time for the next boss. To the one guy in the comments who always asks for the magma worm, you're welcome. Theo is great because he has passive poise and PK has no fire resistance. The plan was to spam his tantrum and flood the arena with lava. Even when we got staggered, the lava still melted half of his HP. Theo himself has 25,000 health, which is kind of insane for a base game boss, but spreading lava and tanking him was a valid strategy. We broke his stance over and over again, and by the time he was in phase 2, it was already over. Now that we had a fire boss, it was time to burn down a tree, and the odds of us losing this fight are extreme extremely low. We did what magma worms do best and charged over and over again and absolutely destroyed phase 1. We tanked his charge and spewed lava everywhere, and he was already under half. That's when things went left. We got stance broken on the way back in, and that little mistake costed us thousands of HP. And the fact that this boss has so many different phases eventually started to wear us down. After getting stance broken again, we had our most embarrassing death of the run, and to the one guy in the comments who always asked for the magma worm, you're welcome. This isn't much of an upgrade, but I was running out of bosses. Instead of rematching the avatar, I decided to use our small stature to navigate through Shadow Keep and take on Mesmer. Now that we were here, we could bring out one of the best bosses from the Mountaintops. This Deathrite bird has probably killed at least half of you watching this video, and Mesmer was no exception. As annoying as he is to fight, he's an absolute blast to play as, and his Ghost Flame explosion hits like a nuke. We used Mesmer's aggression against him and went for the Ghost Flame right away. Since he was so close, it destroyed his health bar, and his poise took a massive hit too. We flew away from his explosion and tried to counter, but the first attack missed. Another Ghost Flame connected though, and that was the end of Mesmer. Revenge is a dish best served cold, but our flames were anything but that. A jump attack finished phase 1, and we timed the Ghost Flame explosion perfectly. Phase 3 was looking just as free, and that's when the Holy Nuke hit us. The Deathrite bird is weak to Holy, and the explosion took everything we had. Losing 2 bosses to the Shadow Tree was not on my bingo card, but his reign stops here. This little guy has 2 separate phases, and we're going to be counting them as 2 different bosses for the sake of this challenge. For obvious reasons, the Fire Giant counters the avatar pretty well. Between our fireballs and firestorms, his first 2 phases never stood a chance. We still had to be careful though, because even though we have 60,000 HP, the avatar can inflict bleed. Across all 3 phases, it also has half as much HP as we do, which is a lot considering the fact that we're the Fire Giant. We rolled away from the nuke and started spamming orbs until he staggered in the flames. A few more fireballs, and the avatar was finally gone. Before going after optional bosses, we wanted to finish the DLC first. That meant our next opponent was Romina, and she's way more dangerous than she looks. Scarlet Rot is our go-to method for killing the Fire Giant in these runs. Now we were on the other side. If she procced it on us, our 60,000 health wouldn't mean a thing. We opened with a fireball, but she dodged it by standing under us. I went for a firestorm, but her small body meant only 2 pillars would hit. A snow wave broke her stance, and before long she was in phase 2. Her transition spawned a ton of butterflies, which is basically kryptonite for a boss this big. We threw out more fireballs, but she kept slipping past them until we eventually got staggered, and that was the end of the Fire Giant. At least his first phase, because we still had a phase 2. Phase 2 Fire Giant is a straight upgrade in every way. We use both hands to cast now, so all of our spells are doubled. Our roll is faster too, because we're already close to the ground. We went all out with orbs and firestorms and then cast our meteor rain. The arena was too small though, and the walls kept messing up our camera. Our spells started firing in random directions and the meteors got stuck on walls. When she closed the gap, we hit her with our flamethrower and it did some massive damage. We were winning until she spawned in butterflies and melted 10,000 HP in seconds. Scarlet Rot kicked in too, and if we didn't end this now, then the run would definitely die here. We hit her with another flamethrower and dodged her dive with a roll. One more roll later and Romina was done. We burned the ceiling tree and got warped to near Elden. There was only one main boss left, and he was the hardest one yet. Promised Consort Radahn has everything a boss could ever want: speed, range, power, and hits that can one-shot most of our roster. His only weakness is Holy, and that goes away in phase 2 because of course it does. We beat the Letta gank after minutes of fun and engaging gameplay, then climbed the staircase. We tanked his first hit and rolled away. He tried pulling us in with gravity, but that doesn't work on the Fire Giant. We started throwing fireballs and the damage was solid, but his health bar didn't move at all. We kept at it though, and eventually broke his stance. After a few more orbs, phase 1 was done pretty fast. We dodged the Holy Nuke in phase 2 and went right back to throwing fire. This is where things got scary. Radahn hits way harder in phase 2 and our health was dropping fast. So was his though, so we just kept doing the same thing over and over again. Roll away, throw fire, roll away, and throw fire. He was getting the full Fire Giant experience. By the end of this fight, we were both one hit away from death, and then he went for a grab. We beat Radahn and the main DLC was done. We already completed our first 3 goals, so now it was time for the mystery challenge, getting every single remembrance in the DLC, and there were only 2 left. First up was Midra. He's got 40% fire resistance, which is problematic for obvious reasons. On the plus side, he also does fire himself, which we also resist. When the fight started, we rolled into him and spewed fire everywhere. This move puts out a lot of hitboxes really fast, and it's basically our strongest attack. He's only got 80 poise, so I kept staggering him over and over. We threw in some firestorms and some orbs to keep the pressure on. We got him into phase 2 and decided to go all out. Before long, the entire arena was covered in flames. Midra responded with a laser and reminded us that it wasn't over yet. We were down to almost nothing, and one more fire spew got us the remembrance. Only one boss remaining, and we'd have every remembrance in the DLC. The next boss was Bale, and we never fight him in these runs. Bale resists fire by 40%, which is actually less than we expected for a dragon. He's still a monster though. He's huge and he hits like a truck. We started charging our flamethrower before he even landed to get a head start. Then we rolled into him and broke his stance. For once we could actually use our melee attacks, but the physical damage was bad though, so we went back to throwing fire. Bale broke our stance and hit us with lightning for 3,000 damage. Our meteor hit him hard, and an elbow drop got him into phase 2. We kept throwing fireballs and landed another elbow. That's when Bale went for his ultimate attack. We rolled away from the earthquake and dodged most of his laser, and when we tried to fight back, his lightning breath caught us. One more hit and the fire giant was gone. In the end, the Mountaintops put up a hell of a fight. They made it through the entire base game, defeated Radahn and almost every DLC remembrance. Commander Nile clutched 2 fights at 1 health, the Godskin duo somehow beat the Dancing Lion, and the Fire Giant carried us all the way to Bale. In the end, we ran out of bosses just 1 fight shy of our goal, but they got further than any region before it. Not bad for a bunch of frozen mountain dwellers. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, then like the video, and don't forget to subscribe because YouTube doesn't always recommend.